Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Big Data London webinar. Today, we're focusing on data storytelling. I'm Andy Steed, Content Director of Big Data London, and I'm joined today by another Andy, Andy Cotgreave from Tableau.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, so you might recognise Andy from his keynote sessions at previous Big Data London physical conferences. So it's great to get him involved virtually today as well. So today, the session's going to be even more interactive than normal. So I'd like to make sure everybody's aware of the questions box just beneath the screen here, and get your keyboards at the ready, because Andy's going to get you involved during the presentation with some questions that we'd like you to send answers in. Don't forget to send your actual questions for Andy in as well, and I'll endeavour to ask as many as I possibly can in the Q&A section after Andy's presentation. Quick moment of housekeeping. If you lose the stream at any point, you shouldn't, but should you, just click refresh on your browser, you'll jump straight back in. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome on our featured presenter for the day. Over to you, Andy.
All right, thank you, Andy. All right, hello, everybody. So the topic of the title of the talk today is design skills trump engineering skills for successful data storytelling or even data strategies. Now, that's a provocative title. Am I really going to say you don't need engineers? Well, we'll find out in the next sort of 25 to 30 minutes. Hopefully I can keep you all on board without alienating anybody. I am going to say that without design skills in your analytics team and a diverse cross-section of skills, your entire investment in a data strategy is potentially worthless. Now, before I get in, thanks for the introduction, Andy. I'm technical evangelist at Tableau, also the co-author of this, the Big Book of Dashboards. As always, it's a pleasure to be speaking and involved as part of Big Data London. Again, as Andy said, sorry we can't all be in the same place together. But thank you for joining today. As we said, I want to make this a bit interactive, so get ready to type when I ask. Right, so I'm going to convince you your next strategic decision or training or recruitment should involve design skills. Technology, believe me, is not your problem. You already have the tools I think you need. Let me show some proof points. Let's turn the screen sharing on. Here's a great example of this that's just come out recently. The UN announced a new data strategy a few weeks ago, and it has 17 key recommendations. Now, I want you all to type in a number as quick as you can. The number is how many of the recommendations are about technology. So there are 17 recommendations. How many are about technology? The challenge I have here is that there's a bit of a lag between me asking you a question and the questions getting to my display. So I'm going to wait 5 more seconds. How many of these are about technology? All right, I'm beginning to see some answers. 6, 0, 10, 5, 2. Well, the answer is 4. Of 17 key recommendations, only 4 are about technology. All right. This is really important. They've recognized something fundamental. And here's the one I really want a diverse number of answers for. Because let's take a step back. Why are we investing in business intelligence? Thanks for all those numbers. I'm seeing some people can't see video. Hopefully you can see video. If not, I'm going to leave Andy and the support people to sort that out. Okay, but now type in a question. How many people... type in an answer. Why do we invest in business intelligence? Just a short answer. Typos are fine because you're going to have to type quickly to do this. Just give me a short phrase about why we invest in business intelligence. Some of the answers I'm seeing are to share insights, discovering trends, making decisions, right? Now, these are great answers. Somebody said to make reports. And that's an interesting answer because it's like, well, let's think of the next question. Why are we making reports? We don't just do BI to create reports, to do BI to create reports. What is it we're actually doing this for? So enjoying seeing some of these answers coming in. Now, remember, keep that answer that you've kept in there because we want to make data-driven decisions. Understand business. Exactly. So here we are. Many of you have BI, business intelligence stacks, or you might be looking to invest in one. This picture shows Tableau's BI platform. It's an engineering marvel. But not a single one of you have said, we invest in BI to make an engineering marvel, right? You're improving efficiency, customer understanding, to understand why. All of these answers are brilliant. And here's the thing. The reasons you invest in BI here are 4 examples of what I'm just seeing coming in the Q&A. And I'd ask, for all the investments in data and data engineering that you have planned or are planning, how much have you matched that in investment and time and money in getting all your employees to understand the design, the human level at which this data has to be processed in order to do the things that you've all just typed as answers? Because you might think you don't need to invest that, but I'm going to show you on the next slide a dashboard that shows that is the result of what happens when you don't think about this sort of design and communication layer on top of your BI strategy. You ready? Here it comes. I suspect you have all just felt something of a shudder. This is what happens when we don't consider why we invest in business intelligence. Now, this is a genuine dashboard that embarrassingly was published internally in Tableau. It didn't last very long. All the information is there. You know, it's from achieving the sort of objectives, it's there, but it communicates absolutely nothing. And this is why investing in data literacy is absolutely vital. So what we're going to do in the rest of this talk is look at some actual principles of design from theories and laws of design to just give you examples of how big an impact they can make on your organization. And the first thing we need to think about is, well, what is design in the first place? To answer that, I'm going to read a quote from this. This is the book that probably had the most profound impact on my Tableau career. It's The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. Came out in 2013. Amazing. Now, in it, he says, designers make pleasurable experiences. And a lot of the book is about him convincing engineers, I'll come back to his attitude in that in a moment, really realize that the way things look, providing a sense of joy to designed objects is fundamental to success. And this applies to your dashboards and your charts absolutely as much as it applies to designed teapots, as you can see on the cover of the book. So given we want pleasurable experiences, what exactly does that mean? So I'm going to show a couple of design examples, and I want you to consider which you prefer. So I'm going to ask you to type again in a moment. I'm going to show you 2 approaches to visualizing data, and I want to know which one you prefer. So get ready to type. Hold off on pressing enter until I tell you. Dashboard 1. This is from Shamik Sharma, built in Excel, and it shows data about a grade 10 algebra course. You've got all the students listed here from worst to best. We've got course grades, class descriptions, there are assignment scores throughout the course history. And then over here, you've got course level data about grades and absentee and math scores. So this is an algebra course result. Contrast that with this one, which is data about dogs. Because who doesn't love data about dogs? What's going on here? This was done by David McCandless from Information is Beautiful. He calculated a pet quality score using information about intelligence of dogs, whether they get sick a lot, how easy they are to groom. Basically, are they a good pet? And that's plotted on the x-axis. So over here, you have dogs that are a nightmare, just a maintenance problem. And over here, you've got happy dogs that live a long life and are just happy, friendly, and easy to look after. On the y-axis, he's got how popular are dogs amongst society. So you've got rare dogs and up here, common dogs. So the scatter plot actually has some cool insight. Bulldogs, really difficult pet to look after, inexplicably overrated because they're actually very popular. Over here, you've got collies and golden retrievers, easy dogs to look after, very popular. And a dog here, the Paw Spaniel, beautiful pet, very friendly, but not very popular. So if you're into dogs, that's a dog-based scatter plot. So now start typing which you prefer and why. And if you prefer this one, press enter as soon as you can. So there's no right or wrong answer here. I want to know which you prefer and why. And I want you to type, but only press enter if you're on this side, so I can see why people enjoy this one. It's okay. Whatever you answer is completely valid, because I'm talking about your opinions and beliefs and feelings here. So there's no wrong answer. And on the left, we've got some interesting stuff. We've got people who like the information density over here. We like the operational, the ability to observe. That's absolutely right. So some great answers. Keep them coming. Now press enter if you like the dogs. We'll have a look at why we like the dogs. Somebody has said depends on purpose and audience. Absolutely, it does depend. I'll come on to that. But what we're getting on here, so we're getting people saying on this one, this is nice and clear. Everything is obvious. You use very good principles. Whereas over here, I'm getting answers such as engagement, less easy to understand, but it's more fun and has a bit of a more beauty aspect. So I'm just trying to read some. Okay, so there's some brilliant answers coming in. Unfortunately, I don't have time to read them all. Yeah, so somebody just said the dog chart is more interesting to look at and understand. Absolutely. The interest of the user is one of these key things we might need to think about. Algebra, easier to extract information. Great. These are awesome answers. What's actually going on here? Both of these are completely valid ways of doing things. On the left-hand side, we've got a design style which leans towards functionality. All right, it's austere, it's crisp, it's clear, it's about rapid understanding, something you might want to do in an operational dashboard. And you know, that's absolutely fine. And this is beautiful too. This is a functional beauty. Over here, you've got something slightly more beautiful. It's more engaging. Maybe it's the kind of thing you put on blog posts or in publications to engage and attract readers or engage people to read your report. I'm getting distracted now because you're typing in some brilliant answers here. Both are each are appropriate to a different kind of function, which is what BI is about. That's absolutely right. This one is about a specific chart. There's really only one story here, but there's multiple stories over here. Somebody says they trust. There's something about trust on this one. You know what? This is awesome, actually. I've been doing various examples of this for several years, and somebody always comes up with a new example. I don't think anyone's ever talked about how this design on the left inspires more trust. So thank you for that. That's a really good example. Now, our jobs as analysts, or your job, your teams of analysts' job, is to be able to iterate and work with people to work out how to balance both of these design styles appropriately for the purpose of what you're trying to build. Before I move on from this one, this is something you cannot compare to this one, right? We're going to come back to this dashboard a few times. Great design doesn't have to be shiny and pretty. You can show a hugely or a very information dense display and still have something that is beautiful, unlike this one, which is information dense and very much not beautiful. So thanks for answering those questions. I see somebody said, why not have both? Can you incorporate beauty and functionality? You can toe the line, but sometimes you can. Yeah, that's a question to have over a beer when we're face to face again, I think. Excellent. We might try and address that one in the Q&A. So that's two approaches to design. Now, I want to go back to Don Norman for a moment. Don Norman, one of the things he talks about in this book is about how whenever we encounter an object that has been designed, we go through 3 levels of processing. And I think this is a really important concept to understand. And I'm going to use a great visual prop here. I'm going to use a 2nd generation iPod 2, which look at that, still works. And in fact, I can still hear the hard drive whirring on it. Right. So Don Norman says, when we encounter an object, we go through 3 levels of processing. We have a visceral response. We judge it based on how it looks. And even though it looks really dated now, when this thing came out, It was like slick and gorgeous. You remember that, Andy?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
right?
Yeah, I had one exactly the same.
Yeah, right. I mean, now it looks dated and clunky, but at the time, this was absolute cutting edge. So that's the visceral response, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Then we try and use the thing. Can I navigate the music? Can I spin the wheel? That's the behavioral level response. I'm trying to get a behavioral task completed. And then at the end of all that, I'll reflect and go, wow, the iPod's cool. I'm going to talk about Apple for the next 15 years. So what Don Norman is talking about is visceral, behavioral, reflective levels of processing for every object we encounter. And those levels of processing is what your audience is doing with your dashboards and your charts. And it's really important to get this visceral thing right. I'm going to bang on about the visceral level of processing, partly because it gives me a chance to read out the most provocative quote in this entire book. So talking about visceral, the way things look as being important, Don Norman says, engineers and other logical people tend to dismiss the visceral response as irrelevant. Engineers are proud of the inherent quality of their work and dismayed when inferior products sell better just because they look better. But of all of us make those judgments, visceral responses matter. Slightly provocative words from Don Norman. I would say engineers appreciate beauty too. So I think he was pretty provocative there. But they do make a difference. The visceral reactions are important. You have already had some in this webinar today. You've seen a chart about dogs. Assuming you don't hate dogs, you've probably had a nice visceral response to the color and shape and size and layout of that. You saw data about an algebra class. It was in a really nice grid and very good use of white space and very subtle use of color. That's also probably created a positive visceral response. You also saw the terrible example that I showed right at the start, and that shudder you felt is your negative visceral response. It matters. Your teams of analysts have to have this understanding wired into them. If they don't get the visceral response right, then your whole data strategy might kind of fail. Because if I have to go and look at that bad dashboard, two things are going to happen. I'm either going to never look at it again because I just can't face seeing it, or if I'm forced to see it over and over again, I'm going to get this growing sense of resentment in the company's investment in data because as far as I can tell, the data looks crap. Oh, sorry, the data looks bad. So Don Norman led the way. Somebody has asked a question. What are the principles of beauty? Is it the same for everybody? I very much doubt it is not the same for everybody. And that is a challenge and analyst teams and human beings have to encounter every single day. So yeah, good question. Not out of the scope of this talk, I think, to answer. For the rest of the talk, I want to show some other examples from the final book I'm going to refer to. This is The Universal Principles of Design. This is another book that had a big influence on me. And it's just a little compendium of easy to digest examples of design theories. At this point, it's worth saying there are links somewhere. There is a little panel somewhere which has links to everything I'm sharing today. So if you want some good books or some good links to places, go check those. But I want to talk about 3 principles from that book, which again really go to show, I hope, how making sure your team of analysts understand design will actually improve the data strategy. The first of them, I have to introduce by showing you a chart and asking you a question. So there's a magenta screen. Here comes the chart. The wording is deliberately chosen because it's based on an old experiment, but it's somehow more relevant today. I want you to answer the question as quick as you can, A or B. 600 people are affected by a deadly disease. We have 2 treatment options, A and B. And type the answer as soon as you can come up with it. A, 200 people will be saved out of the 600. Treatment B, 66% chance nobody will be saved. So have a think of that while you're doing that. Somebody asked, the author of The Principles of Design is William Lidwell, Christina Holden, and Jill Butler. Again, there's a link to this book on the resources page. Somebody said, So somebody's asked, why is the screen black? The screen shouldn't be black. So hopefully it is just you.
Hit refresh.
Oh, hit refresh. Yes. Beauty is not the same for everybody. Hence people not liking cars from Far East in the past. They didn't look European. Absolutely right. Okay, so here come the answers. I'm seeing A, B, A, B, A, B, B, A. Right. They are the same. Both are equivalent. But I'm saying some people have noticed some things about this. But I am seeing more A's than B's. And that, my friends, was the goal. Here is the same chart with the color and the wording different. Treatment A, 400 people will die. Treatment B, 33% chance nobody will die. You might have seen, they aren't actually equivalent because in one, some people survive and some die. In one, everybody dies and everybody survives. Here are the two different versions of these charts are exactly the same, right? The only thing that's different is the color and the wording. These charts are based on a seminal piece of work by Tversky and Kahneman from 1981 about the framing of decisions. And they're talking very deeply about design and psychology and what they called framing. What's happening here is I could have showed you both charts. The one I did show you was intended to make more of you choose A. And what Kahneman and Tversky did in their experiment is work out that they could show you the same choices with subtly different wording. And even though the wordings were describing exactly the same outcomes, people's decisions were different. And what I think I'm showing here is that the way I show charts also controls your reaction. So I have the power to change your mind just by my use of titles and words and colors and position, which is what I've done here. I want to show you another example because it is my favorite, I think, from my sort of 10-year career at Tableau. This chart was done by Simon Scar, and it came out in 2011. It's pretty old now, but it won awards, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's a horrible topic, but it's an amazing piece of data visualization. It shows monthly deaths in Iraq from 2003 across to 2011. Each bar pointing downwards represents the number of deaths in that month from deaths caused by conflict within Iraq. And thinking about visceral reactions and visual metaphors, you have all just seen a smear of blood dripping down the screen. Very deliberate, evocative choice by Simon to create an emotional response. I saw his chart and thought, you know what? I'm going to change it. What if I turn those bars so they face the normal way, upwards, and I take away the evocative red to make it blue? Now let's look at the chart. 2003, Second Gulf War, huge loss of life. 2006, 2007, terrible sectarian violence. But after that, look at what happened to the data. Now the blood metaphor has gone. I can actually see a completely different story. Deaths are on the decline. This is the power that analysts wield when they play with data. I can take the same chart. It's literally the same chart. It's just turned upside down and given a different color and tell two completely different stories. And it is legitimate to use these storytelling techniques to make people change their mind in particular ways. Now, you could go down paths of deliberate, or you could do that accidentally. That would be bad, right? But this is the power we wield. And when Kim Rees, who founded Periscopic, thinks and talks about framing, this quote is great. Data viz is a language, a means to convey an opinion or an argument. Even choosing average sales by sales rep is a subjective choice, because which average do you choose? It will change the framing of the analysis. Framing, so important. Got two more to go. And the second of the three principles is the flexibility, usability trade-off. And this was work pioneered by Norman and Andrew Ardlisco 21 years ago. We have all encountered different types of remote controls. Over here, this one is really simple. It isn't very flexible. It only does three things, but it's really, really usable. I would give this to my grandparents. And then as we go over here, we've got something which is really flexible. It does literally all the things. There's a button for everything. My grandparents would have no idea how to use it because it is not usable. This is a trade-off that is really hard to balance. Do you want to build something that is flexible or something that is usable? And here's something else I see all the time happening in customers. And I used to do it when I used to be a customer of Tableau many years ago. I had the same problem. You might launch a new dashboard. Here's one showing economic indicators from the last century. Possibly not a genuine business use, but let's go with the flow. It's very simple, just 3 charts, simple colors, 2 filters. You release it, you get plaudits, and then in come the requests. As a good analyst, you try and accommodate them. But then you get, can you add a new filter, Andy? Oh, Andy, we need a new view. And we need to break it down by different categories. So you try and accommodate all these things. And the next thing you know, your beautiful dashboard, this has happened. And oh my God, you added the reference line that somebody asked for. You added the categories in a terrible color palette. So now things just look like tiddlywinks thrown across your screen. You break this down by decades as well. But now you've got a scroll bar on a dashboard. That's really bad. Never put a scroll bar on the dashboard. You've got legends and filters in all sorts of places now. You've got charts that are just sitting there with no real purpose. That should have been somewhere else. And you even have to put disclaimers about how to actually use this thing. And even though this is in the top left of the dashboard, you can guarantee probably nobody is going to read it. So what do we do? How do you, as an analyst or a team of analysts, solve this problem? Well, you have to think like a user experience designer. Dashboards are applications. So you go from a hot mess and you think, how can I fix it? Well, here's one approach. I built this demo in Tableau, right? I've gone back to the simple, less flexible, but more usable original style. But now I've added a button. Press the button and all the filters appear. And if I want, I can get those to collapse away. So I can add the flexibility for those who want to see it. And if people want to see the tiddlywink version, they can click this button and out comes all the data they want to see, and they can hide it again. I mean, I would change the color. I would do it actually in a different way. But your analyst's challenge, your design trained analysts, their challenge that they will understand once they have this training is how to balance this flexibility and usability. The final one is Hick's law. This is from 1952, right? W.E. Hick. He said that the time it takes to make a decision increases or decreases as the number of alternatives increases. It's a bit of a mouthful to read. But I want to show you an example about how badly designed visuals can make decision-making incredibly hard. And if decisions are hard and time-consuming in your business, then you are literally wasting money by producing difficult to decipher dashboards. Okay. So imagine you're in Sydney. We're going to take you to Australia. We're going to put you in a car in the center of Sydney. At 6 o'clock, you've got a theater starting in an hour and you've got to have a meal. Your partner is in the side of the car. They're stressed. And you're trying to park the darn car on the street. So at 6 p.m., you come across a sign and it says, yes, you can park here. Or can you park here? I don't know. Here is the genuine signs you get on the roads in Sydney. Answer me this question as quick as you can. It's 6 p.m. on a Sunday. Can you park? And if so, for how long? Note, a 4p, that means a 4-hour ticket. You can type some answers here, but it's probably going to take too long to get in. Oh, too late. Right. But you can all picture yourselves in that situation. It is stressful trying to drive a car and look at signs while everything around you is causing you stress. People behind you, your partner in the car, your kids in the back screaming, you're hungry, you're going to miss the start of the theater, and then you've passed the sign. You've got no idea if you can park. This is a terrible, terrible sign. My colleague, Mac Bryler, who works down in Sydney, was like, what if we could redesign this? And he said, oh, I've hidden the slide. Right. Now, can you answer the question with the one on the left-hand side? A couple of people have said, yes, you can. Correct. You got it right. What if it looked like this on the left? Now, all I have to do is move my eyes from left to right to find Sunday, move my eyes down to find 6 p.m., cross-reference across, and I can see it's a 4p ticket. I would put it to you that the one on the left now is a lot easier to pass because we've reduced the amount of things you have to do to get to the insight. Someone has said, I am from Sydney, so I have an advantage, probably because they've seen it many, many times and they've gotten familiar. So brilliant. So yes, a bunch of people did get there with the answer yes in the end. So nice work. But that's Hick's law. Hick's law is about simplifying the decisions for everybody. So where have we got to? We've got Hick's law, decision-making made easier. Flexibility, usability trade-offs. How do you make something accessible for new people, powerful enough for the skilled people? Norman, framing. You have the power to control how people interpret your charts. And, Don Norman talked about the 3 levels of visual processing. These are all just some of thousands of design theories and laws and ideas that can take your data strategy from being engineered to being effective. And when you think of data strategy as a human problem rather than a technology problem, you're going to vastly improve your data culture and your data literacy. Now, it's not just me saying this. We've got some great examples of Tableau customers, people we come across. At Deloitte in Canada, they have a big human-centered design team building their dashboards. I had a great time talking with Stefan and his colleague Alex Hopkinson on If Data Could Talk about how they've built this design of this team that literally has all the designers and the data engineers sitting in the same room, working from start to finish on their dashboard applications. They've done an amazing COVID-19 economic recovery dashboard, which I'd highly recommend you go check out. Fee Gordon, she's Global Director of BI Strategy at JLL. And in a recent Tableau user group, she said this: design standards allow for consistency, reduced effort, and better branding. They've recognized that standardizing on design means that the analysts have an easier time building things because things are simplified. And the end users have a much greater trust in what's being built because they don't have to start from scratch every time they see a new dashboard. They kind of get this familiarity. They know what they're looking at. So there are 2 examples. Also at Tableau, we ourselves have the blueprint. We recognize that successful data strategies is not just about buying a piece of software. Obviously, we love it when people buy Tableau software, but we really don't like it when, unfortunately, that investment then doesn't sort of see through to complete success. The blueprint is our strategy to help customers get over this. We recognize that success is not just about the technology; it's actually about agility, proficiency, and community. And the blueprint has a complete roadmap. This is just the overview, right? But there's loads more detail about this. But you can see education, measurement, analytics, support, engagement, communications. None of that is about technology. The path to success really only starts when you buy any piece of technology, and that is true in successful BI as much as any other thing. So, Andy, I've got to the end of my content. I wonder what the audience think. Do design skills trump engineering skills? It is a provocative question. I don't think one trumps the other. What I do think is you have to consider both levels of skills equally, not only just in your analysts, but you have to help your company, your employees, be more data savvy and more data literate. And part of that, at least a part of that, is a big part is understanding design. So we'll go to Q&A. I'll hand to Andy in a moment. You can follow me on Twitter. Those links are available in your panel. All the resources I've talked about are available with links as well. I hope that's been provocative and enjoyable. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. And we have links to Tableau and Tableau Blueprint you can find out more about as well. With that, Andy, let's see what people have to say.
Perfect. And before I go on to your questions, and do keep sending them through, just wanted to mention for anybody who might have joined this a little bit late, there's the on-demand version of this program comes online almost instantly after this one's finished. So if you missed the beginning and like to see it, or if there's a part of Andy's presentation that you'd like to rewind to and have another look at, you can do it that way. Andy mentioned the resources. They're in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little tab called attachments there. We've got some webinars coming up. We've got another visualization webinar for fans of visualization next week as well. So feel free to sign up to that. However, yes, we'll get straight onto the Q&As. Yes, there's lots of comments about bad Sydney bad Sydney parking signs.
There's two comments come in. They're not so much questions, but they're worth talking about. So someone said that the parking sign redesign is an elegant solution, but does it trade off simplicity and completeness? Can we end up if we limit the amount of information, do we actually cut important facts out? And yes, that clearly could be true. And if you were to look at those two examples for a long time, you would realize actually Mac did remove some information. But you could make that table you could make the sort of blue matrix a bit smaller and still keep the information there, I think. So yes, we are trading off simplicity and completeness. That's back to the flexibility, usability trade-off, I think. Someone said that design and engineering facilitate each other. Yes, they do. How do we bridge the gap? I think to bridge the gap, it's about recognizing diversity of skills in teams. So you can start this at the recruitment stage by ensuring you have a diverse team. If you followed any of the criticisms of the way that AI or machine learning are being implemented, you'll know that there's a lack of diversity in the checking data sets. And we end up with some heinous, racist ML applications, right? And, so all sorts of non-diverse results. That's a problem with diversity. I've actually got another book I'd recommend. This isn't, here's this book, The Fuzzy and the Techie by Scott Hartley. This book is entirely about bridging the gap between the fuzzies, I guess that's me. I mean, I used to be a software engineer, but I feel quite fuzzy, and the techies, the engineers, right? This is a really good book, and he very much addresses how to change the gap. Go follow people like Fee Gordon from JLL. Find out a little bit more about them and Deloitte. Digging into the case studies we have on our site about what they're doing is also a really good way to bridge the gap.
So, yeah, I've got a question as they come in. One question from me, actually, from our research last year that you might not have seen. Actually, sort of visualization and storytelling and things like that was flagged up as top of the important skills for data teams, which hopefully is no surprise to you. So it's good. How do you distinguish between the two? And are people will be better storytellers with better visualization, but do you think that you need a kind of natural storytelling ability for those people in those positions in the same way that people need a natural designer? Or if they've got good enough charts, can anyone do it, if you like?
So is the difference between data visualization and data storytelling? Is that the
yes?
yeah. I'll tell you a little story. This year has clearly been obviously a fundamental change in the global situation. COVID-19 has been, I think there's a silver lining for the field of data. It's been data is at the center of the story. Tell a story about the White House task force, not Donald Trump, but the actual task force looking at data. We have customers, and I'm aware of people in the data viz field who are supplying charts to the White House every day. Some of them are sending dashboards. Some of them are sending packaged stories of insights each day. I hear that it's the stories that are being received more readily in the White House. Now, that's one data point amongst many thousands. But the reason I say that, I think that's really profound, right? People do sometimes crave to be told what it is the data's saying, right? And maybe I don't have time to go to your dashboard and click on the filters and find the information. However good that dashboard is, I might not have time to go and find it. Just tell me what I need to know. And I have great debates with Andy Kirk in particular about should they be given interactive charts or just the story? And I can argue both sides of that. There is a difference. There totally is a difference. If you're building operational dashboards which allow exploration, you're kind of saying, here is the data. I have crafted a path that you can follow to find your own story. Or I can do a story and just go, here is the path, and this is what we're going to do. And you've seen that in COVID-19 loads, right? We've got Johns Hopkins dashboards. You can go and find for yourself the COVID-19 situation globally or in your region. But what we've seen in the media and on TV is that storytelling has been exceptional on so many media channels about how they're introducing really complicated concepts, exponential curves, logarithmic scales, per capita, right? All these things have to be explained to an audience who doesn't normally interact with data. And many organizations have done this exceptionally well. So you can see that it depends is the answer, right? It's good to have a bit of both.
Yes. Yeah. And we've had a couple of questions along the same theme. A couple when the Iraq chart went up, and a couple now about influence in charts, neutrality, stuff like that. Obviously, because the Iraqi one was so provocative. Should the visualization be designed to be neutral, to give the person who's looking at it the opportunity to form their own opinions, or is some obviously it's a beautiful chart with the red. Is that?
So this is a fantastic question. Should data viz be designed to be neutral? I have thoughts. I have many thoughts. In theory, yes, visualizations should be neutral. In theory, I would want my visualizations to largely be like a nice BBC style neutral news story, i.e. factual and reportage. The reality is, certainly in the media, I'll talk about business separately, but certainly in the media, visualizations are like opinion pieces in newspapers, right? Every decision I make, so Iraq's bloody toll, I could have done the bloody streak one or the neutral blue one. I'm a story, even with a chart, I am choosing a story to tell you, right? So I don't think charts should be you shouldn't perceive charts as neutral, because they never are. I have an agenda. If I'm trying to persuade you that Iraq is in a good place, I'm going to do the upward bars painted blue. If I'm going to try and persuade you that Iraq has just been a human tragedy, I mean, both of those can coexist, but I'm going to show you the bloody version. So I think a fundamental thing is to educate people that charts are not neutral. There's loads of academic research showing that people perceive data and charts and bar charts as having an inherent truthiness about them. And that's not true. Now, think in business, even I kind of glossed over it in the talk, but even if I'm showing average salaries or let's talk about a sales team, average sales per team member. Which average do I choose? If I choose the mean, then one salesperson who had one rocket high deal is going to be way off the charts. If I chose the median, then an outlier sales opportunity is going to be neutralized. And that is the choice you make when you build a neutral operational sales tracking dashboard. Do I want to show the mean or the median? They are not neutral choices, because they will change the ranking of those sales reps, right? So no, I don't think. I think I've come to the conclusion, no, they can't be neutral, and we have to be educated that it's down to us to see when it's not neutral.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So it's down to the viewer to take their own take their own kind of findings from it, and be aware enough, context aware enough of what they're being told.
Yeah, and somebody's added, yes, but the audience is not so data savvy. I know, and I've written quite a lot about. I would much rather my children were being taught this rather than how to make 3D multicolored exploded pie charts, because that's what they're getting taught right now. Yeah, and in that time they could be taught to be data literate consumers of citizen data.
Yes,
I know which I prefer.
Yeah. So I guess this next question is kind of answered by that, in terms of, I'm going to paraphrase the question a little bit, sort of about what you give when when people are viewing your data dashboard visualizations, would you give some kind of guidance or training, or is it more important that you give it to them and let them draw their own conclusions from it?
Draw their own conclusion. Actually, I'm going to challenge you on the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your last phrase there threw me. So I think you're going to have to re-ask the question, because I can design a dashboard. All right, I think there's a legitimate challenge about how I design a dashboard so people can understand how to use it and what it's saying. I'm not sure I can design a dashboard to tell them what to think. Or did I?
No. I mean, would you, alongside that, I think that's what the question's asking is, would you hand someone a dashboard or a visualization or a chart, and then hand them some sort of instructions of how to get stuff out of it, or speak to them about it and tell them what you think they should get out of it? Or is it a better idea to just hand them it and then see what their reaction to it?
I'll tell you, right, I used to be a user experience UI designer, and there I learned that the best way to know if something is usable without training is to hand them something and then watch them use it. Back in there, I used to design software for children's school PCs. If anybody used a RM window box, type yes in the questions. I worked on the window box team for several years, and it's brilliant. You bring kids in and you say, "Hey, here's color magic. Can you start drawing some pictures with color magic?" And you watch the kid just go, "Nope, no idea." It's quite humiliating, but it's hugely educational, and it's also amazing doing that with dashboards, right? If I build a dashboard, I've crafted every single pixel on that screen. I intimately know what every dot does, so I've become unable to judge my own success because I know what it does. Then you put that in front of an end user and you watch them use it without telling them how to use it. And it's humiliating because you'll sit there and go, "Why aren't you using the filters? The filters are right there." And they're like, "Well, I didn't see them." Huh? What? So coming to the question, Andy, it is possible to create hands-free dashboards that are either so simple it's obvious how to use them, or you can overlay instructions for the first-time visitors. You see that on phone apps a lot. Or you have to train them. And it depends on your time, resources, the skills of your analysts, and various things. Thinking back to what Fee Gordon says, one of the reasons they have the design standards at JLL is because they can get a user to know the filters are always on the left, the color's always the same, the title means this is how to get the data. Because users always know that, they can introduce new dashboards without having to retrain the users every single time.
Yeah. And how, before we come on to the last question, which I'll give you a pre-warning of the last question, I'm going to ask you the question you asked everybody else about design skills and engineering. But how do you, or how should people who are building their teams identify people who have this skill? Because it's quite an inherent skill, isn't it? I mean, you either have it or you don't. This kind of design, being able to see things, being able to present things. I mean, is there a good way that people can maybe recruit from within? Maybe if they can find the people that they already have.
Yeah, I'm going to give one answer, which I know is slightly controversial in some circles, so it's not one I'm going to hold to too far. But if you were to recruit a graphic designer for your graphics team to make all your marketing materials, all your signage and your brand materials, you would legitimately ask to see their portfolio. And if they did not have a portfolio, you might think, something's up there. If you want to hire somebody with design skills in data visualization, I think it's legitimate to say, "I'd like to see your portfolio." And there are platforms like Tableau Public where you can build visualizations and host them there and say, here is my body, a body of work that I make available publicly. Some people do make a legitimate criticism of that, and they say, "Well, look, that punishes people who have busy home lives, right? Because if I'm working 9 to 5 and then I've got to go home and look after children, or I'm a carer, or I've got 2 jobs, I don't have time to maintain a public portfolio." So there is a trade-off there. So don't just recruit based on portfolios. But in recruitment, there's no reason not to literally ask them what they think of design. Show them some of your dashboards and ask them from a design perspective, what would they change and why? Why? Always ask why. Give them an exercise. Say, okay, here's some data. Can you create something that communicates to the CEO? I think just choosing the right questions to, leading questions, why the sort of the why-based questions are very informative, I think, of people's underlying skill.
Perfect. And yeah, so last question. Obviously, I imagine it's not going to be a yes/no answer, but in terms of your question that kicked off the discussion, I mean, do you think that design skills do trump engineering skills a little bit?
No, not really. No, I started my career as a software engineer. Wrote software and ran databases. Loved engineering. Loved that engineering side of things. Eventually fell into user experience, then fell into data visualization, and hey, here I am. I think what we've discovered more and more is this balance of skills and diversity of skills. Just an example, we're all familiar with the term STEM, right? In fact, I can see someone's just talked about the way kids are being taught at school. STEM for years, it's about science, right? And maths, engineering, technology, right? And now we've got universities that are closing down history departments, geography departments. They're closing down thinking, logical, critical thinking departments. And that is a disaster. We need to bring in the art. And there's been a big drive, they've come up with an acronym SHAPE to sort of support the humanities alongside the sciences. So I think, our current government is not going down that path, but we need to acknowledge the need for art-based learning or arts and humanities, liberal arts. All the current issues we've had with Black Lives Matter, that comes back to a lack of diversity in workforces. Diversity of people, diversity of skills, diversity of backgrounds. It all creates a much better melting pot of perspectives that will catch problems before they become big problems and will just create better, more usable things all around.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks very much. I think we've used up all our time now. However, I'd like to say a big thank you to Andy, obviously, for a brilliant presentation and a great Q&A. I really enjoyed the interactivity part, and thanks to everybody at home for getting involved so much. We've had really good, huge amount of feedback and interactivity during the session, and it's been really fun. It's been really great to see. So thanks to everybody at home. But however, it's time to say goodbye. So thanks very much, Andy, and we'll be leaving you until next time. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.